Hey YouTube, and welcome to this AV Helicopters video. Today, with the help of my co-pilot Truffle, we'll go through our list of top 5 helicopter books. In our list, there is a healthy mix of both civil and military rotary aviation stories that we think are particularly noteworthy. In the description below, we've listed out links where you can get hold of these yourself. Now, we have excluded aviation reference books. That is a list for another video. Starting off our list, we have Low Level Hell by Hugh Mills. This book puts the reader in the pilot seat of the OH-6 Scout helicopter, the same helicopter that was later developed into the civil MD-500, whilst he was flying as part of the American involvement in the Vietnam War for the 1st Infantry Division. The author describes the feelings and realities of the small group of pilots that flew with the risk of death on a daily basis. He served 2 tours in Vietnam with the Outcasts, the Scout pilots, and one as a Cobra gunship pilot, flying at low level over hostile terrain in enemy-occupied jungle areas. Here, they flew slowly, acting as the aerial eyes of the US Army divisions in search for the enemy Viet Cong and North Vietnamese Army troops. As young pilots, they're flying in a new war, a helicopter war, and they invented the book of scout flying as they went and paid a heavy price for putting themselves in the line of fire whilst looking for signs of enemy movement and activity. Whilst I have experience flying the 500 and I can relate to the manoeuvres and some of the flight aspects of the aircraft, what is truly incomparable, though, is the thought of flying at such low level, actively trying to draw enemy small arms fire, and the ensuing descriptions of landings in tight confined areas or engine failures at jungle canopy level caused by enemy fire, which the author puts you in the seat for in what is an excellent, well-written, exciting, and also thought-provoking book. Jerry Grayson is a distinguished ex-Royal Navy helicopter pilot who, having been decorated for being involved in a number of impressive search and rescue sorties, moved on to the world of civilian helicopter aerial photography and cinematography, working on projects as varied as James Bond: A View to a Kill, the Athens Olympic Games, and capturing the landing of the Space Shuttle Atlantis. Film Pilot takes the reader through the learning curve of different skills from his previous experience of saving lives on land and sea, which is chronicled in a previous book, Rescue Pilot, and then applying those same skills to placing the lens of a camera to capture images from the unique angle that only a helicopter can achieve. The book chronicles the involvement of the pilot in music videos, car commercials, and multi-million-dollar movies in an enjoyable and eloquent manner, balancing technical details, emotional aspects of some films, and fluid storytelling, whilst being filled with many adventures. Now Solo documents the fascinating journey in 1999 of Jennifer Murray, who became the first woman to pilot a helicopter around the world in a record-breaking solo flight over 97 days. Alongside her, she flew with Colin Bodle, who was in a microlight, and between them, they faced a grueling 30,000 miles of a journey, of which 8,000 were over water. Now Solo is taken from the audio diaries that Jennifer kept at the end of each day, and it tells of the planning, bureaucracy, and the challenges that they faced along the way. The adventure started from Brooklands, south of London, in the United Kingdom, and took them via Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, the United States, and Canada. On the long route, they encountered various challenges such as engine failure, emergency landings, problems with fuel supplies, tiredness, tropical storms, and encounters with errant fighter jets. So alongside this book, a documentary was filmed, Friends in High Places, of which there's a link in the description too. Previously, Jennifer had flown around the world in '97 with Quentin Smith and R-44, and then followed up her solo expedition with a flight to the North and South Poles, documented in her books Broken Journey and Polar First. In the penultimate spot, we have Apache. This is the story told by pilot Ed Macy, whom was dispatched to Afghanistan's notorious Helmand Province in 2006 with the British Army Air Corps, and his squadron were on hand to provide an audacious rescue mission when a British Marine went missing in action in enemy territory. With his colleagues, they attempted a daring mission where they landed in an enemy compound with 2 soldiers strapped to the side of their Apache in order to rescue their colleague, an act of bravery that led him to receive the Military Cross. The book tells the story from inside the cockpit of the AH-64 Apache gunship and covers the grueling selection process to fly the helicopter, and provides a previously unseen insight into what it is like to operate in these incredibly tough and dangerous conditions. A second book, entitled Hellfire, was subsequently released, and that explores further the summer of 2006 in Helmand Province, accumulating in the firing of a Hellfire missile in support of ground troops. Before we reveal our top spot, here's a chance to catch up on some books that are definitely worth a read but didn't just quite make it into our top 5. So, first of all, we have Uniform Kilo by Tim Gilbert, and this documents the adventures of 2 pilots flying an R-44 helicopter halfway around the world from the UK to Australia. Written by Tim, who's now a flight instructor, at the time was just a freshly minted PPL, and together with his co-pilot Marty, they flew the 14,000 miles to Australia. Next, we have Wings on My Sleeve. This is the amazing story of test pilot Eric Winkle Brown, a man that has flown more types of aircraft than any other person, an astonishing 487. Eric was a pilot in the Royal Navy Fleet Arm during the Second World War and survived multiple combat flight operations, including the sinking of the aircraft carrier that he was on board, the HMS Audacity, in 1941. He then moved on to aircraft test flying, including tests on a number of captured German and Italian aircraft at the end of the war, before becoming the first person to land a jet on an aircraft carrier, landing over 2,400 carrier takeoffs. He also had the opportunity to test fly some of the first operational helicopters. The story is told in the understated first-person narrative and follows the exhilarating, if not incredibly dangerous, exploits of test pilots as they pioneered transonic and supersonic flight. It's a cracking read. And finally, we have Fate is the Hunter by Ernest K. Gantt. It's a thrilling account of some of the most memorable experiences this pilot had throughout his career. He'd flown both in peace and war, and these memoirs convey just how close he had come to death at times, and it really makes you appreciate how flight safety has increased exponentially since the 1930s and 1940s. The book provides anecdotes as to the people that he'd known and flown with, and the dramas that they had experienced together, with death portrayed as a hunter, continuously in pursuit of pilots. Gantt's experience overlapped the dawn of commercial aviation, well before omnipresent navigation aids, GPS, sophisticated autopilots, radar and jet engines existed. Gantt manages to vividly portray the absolute joy of flying, offset against some of the risks that they took, and indeed the impact that luck sometimes had on the successful outcome of a flight. Finally, in the top spot, we have Chickenhawk, written by pilot Robert Mason. Chickenhawk tells the story of a US warrant officer sent to fly Huey helicopters in Vietnam. It's eloquently written, describing the day-to-day life of a helicopter pilot in the midst of the American involvement in Vietnam in 1965 and to 66, covering the highs, the lows, the terrifying moments of flying into a combat zone as a slick troop transport Huey pilot, landing in small clearings whilst being shot at without the ability to return fire, and knowing that their fellow soldiers and wounded men are counting on their determination and skill to continue and come home. During his deployment, he was stationed primarily in the Central Highlands area, operating out of the base at An Khe, and was subsequently involved in the Battle of the Ia Drang Valley, an event that was dramatised in the film We Were Soldiers, featuring Mel Gibson. And it was notably the first major battle between US forces and the Army of North Vietnam. The book also details the journey that Robert goes through in terms of his basic training and learning to fly in America prior to graduation and subsequently being deployed to Southeast Asia. Particularly shocking of this book is the final few chapters that detail Robert's return to the United States and the impact that the experience of combat flying has had upon him in terms of coming to terms with lost and injured colleagues once he had returned safely home. This thought is further explored in the less read follow-up, Chickenhawk, Back in the World, and is well worth reading after the initial volume is complete. So there you have it. Now this video has been a little bit different from our normal set, but I hope you've enjoyed the list, and it might have even given you a couple of ideas of great reads that have passed you by. And there are many more fantastic books that we just haven't had the opportunity to feature in this video. If you disagree with our list, or if you've got any other really good suggestions, then please leave them in the comments section below. And until the next video, take care.